Experts know if you want a beautiful yard and garden, you have to prepare the groundwork. So joining me today is Jerry Goodspeed from the Utah State Botanical Center. And Jerry, we're so happy to have you on, especially as this weather gets warmer. People start to get the itch to be outside.
Yeah, they really do.
Right, and gardening is a great excuse to do it, and the warm weather is a great excuse to garden.
It is, it is. This is the time. This is in the spring, everybody's excited to get out there and get working.
Right. So tell me, how do we kind of guarantee or set the groundwork for a good gardening season?
Well, the number one thing is soils. You gotta start with a good soil. And I always tell people two words. Organic matter. You got to have a lot of organic matter, and the more the better for the most part.
So when you say that, what exactly are you referring to? Is it, tell me about organic matter.
Organic matter is something that was once alive, and usually plant material, and has broken down. You know, anything from what we use here is the peat moss. We have some steer manure. We have compost, all of that, anything like that that's going to be able to break down and improve the soil is going to be good.
Okay, so it can be something that I can just go to the store and buy.
You can.
Or it can be something that I've been, orange peels that I've been putting in my
It can be a compost,
right?
Yeah, and so a lot of people do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now why is soil so crucial?
Because that's the foundation of the plants. A lot of times we look at the plants and we see the color and we see the leaves, but it's actually, what you're growing is a root system. So if you grow a good root system, you're going to have a great plant. So and that's the key.
Before you go and buy your plants for the season, which is typically what people think of, you want to check your soil. How much of this do you need? How deep does it have to go to make the plants really kind of take root?
Well, if you're doing it, and most people will be doing this like in a flower bed or a vegetable garden, we recommend about 4 to 6 inches at least to work it in. And myself, I like to put down between 1 to 2 inches of compost or organic matter as I'm working it in.
Okay, so that's where we start. Now, how do we improve the soil that already exists? Just by mixing this in with it?
That's going to be the best thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, just mix it in as best you can. And as I said, for vegetables, for flower beds, you can't go wrong.
Okay, now what about fertilizer? You've got the good soil now. Are you putting fertilizer on top of that?
A lot of times what we'll do is we'll mix it into that. And there's a lot of different fertilizers out there that we use. And a lot of times it's depending upon what your soil needs, but there are some all-purpose that kind of have a little bit of everything in them, and then there's some with just specific nutrients.
Okay, and how do you know what your soil needs? How do you test and see? Because
that's a good question, and we get that a lot. The best thing to do is get a soil sample and send it off to you, so you can get a soil kit free at the extension offices, and then you can pay, I think it's $14, $15, and they'll give you a soil analysis of what you need and what you don't need. And I recommend that.
$14 probably well spent.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll send it back and say, this is what you need, and then you simply just go purchase those and kind of mix it into your soil.
That's exactly right, yep.
Interesting, okay. And what about pruning? How does pruning help our gardens? Is it too late to prune? It's starting to get warm.
Well, we can prune clear up through the end of May without any problem at all. I normally don't like to prune this time of the year because there's leaves and there's bees and there's things that kind of cause some problems. So I normally won't do that. But you can. And there are some plants that we actually like to prune about this time of the year after they're blooming or when the flowers have gone off. For instance, the lilac. And everybody loves the smell of a lilac, but it grows on last year's wood. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll let it bloom first, and then we'll go out and remove 2 or 3 of the older canes. Here's another one, viburnum. Same thing, and you can see that it's producing on last year's growth. And look at those beautiful flowers. So go ahead and
let them bloom because they are so pretty, and that's what we love about spring right there.
Anything that's blooming, we kind of say before Memorial Day, then we'll prune after they bloom.
Prune after they bloom. All right.
If you want a good smell that.
Oh, and it does.
Isn't that wonderful?
So good.
Yeah, that viburnum is incredible.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sherry. We appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.